every story I'm reading today. The entitlement is like, oh, astonishing, crazy. Where do people learn this behavior? Hey, you guys, welcome back to another episode of The Gray in Between. I'm your host, Lola, and together we'll dive into the captivating tales from Reddit and beyond, where life's most complicated moments take center stage. Let's get into this. My wife wants to back out of the divorce she filed. Not sure what to do. My wife of 12 years decided to divorce me earlier this year. We did marriage counseling and just about everything else you could do to save the marriage. I love my wife, but she apparently fell out of love 3 years ago, according to her. We separated in March of this year. The separation was recommended by the marriage counselor after everything else failed. It was supposed to, I guess, show us our marriage from a different angle by being separated. I ended up moving out of the house, and quite honestly, I was much happier living by myself. I told my wife that I wouldn't file for divorce, and if she wanted to go down that route, she could file. In May, she finally filed for divorce. Honestly, I completely expected it coming after the separation experiment. I was hoping for a simple divorce like we talked about before we separated. We don't have a prenup in place since we basically both didn't have that much when we got married. They always say it doesn't matter how much you love or have mutual respect for your spouse because during a divorce, there are no limits. She initially wanted the house, her car, full custody of our daughters, $4,000 a month in child support, and a 6-figure alimony. My wife doesn't work since she's a full-time stay-at-home mom. I was never going to leave her without anything, but it sort of hurt me that she would try to get all of those things, knowing well that I would have barely anything left afterwards. Anyways, the lawyers have been negotiating for some time, and I haven't had much contact with my wife unless it's about the girls. Last night, my wife called me asking me if I would go to dinner because she wanted to talk. I accepted and we met for dinner at a restaurant. She expressed that she wanted to give our marriage another try. Her reasoning was that she was in a dark place before and now she understands that she was the problem. She took 100% responsibility for our problems, which is very out of character for her. Ever since I've known her, she doesn't apologize, like ever. She also said that our daughters missed us living together, which I guess is true. After dinner, she wanted to come back to my place, but I told her it wasn't a good idea. I told her I would have to think about it. She started crying and begging me to come back. Eventually, she calmed down and we went our separate ways. A few months ago, I would have agreed to trying again without hesitation, but after the divorce process, I'm not so sure anymore. The other thing is, I know she's been on dates since our separation. She's told one of our mutual friends who told her husband who told me. I personally haven't dated anyone because our divorce hasn't been finalized. Also, I'm enjoying living single with just my daughters. Ideally, I would like to save this marriage for the sake of my daughters and the love for my wife, but at the same time, I don't want to try again just to waste time ending up in our current situation again. My daughters prefer staying with me over their mom. I've never said anything negative about their mom to my daughters, and I tried to leave them out of it completely. If you've had any experience in trying to make your marriage work again for round 2, was it positive or negative? Is it worth revisiting, or do I just cut my losses and move on? I don't know, right? So I'm just speculating in this case. It kind of sounds like her lawyers might have told her that she wasn't gonna get what she wanted to out of the divorce, or as much, or probably very little. And you go through those motions of like, you know what? She's not gonna be able to maintain the life that she's had the past 12 years. She's probably gonna have to get a job. Life's gonna be a lot more difficult. And so she just decided that it would be better to just not go through with it and try to make it work with you. I'm not saying her intentions are disingenuous, but sometimes when you're put in those positions, you're like, wait, maybe I was taking my life for granted. Maybe I really did treat him bad. It makes you like second guess a lot of stuff because you're like, when you see the other side of the coin, you're like, wait, what? This is gonna be my life if I leave? It's a lot harder than people think. It makes you reevaluate. Or she got broken up by her ex or whatever, or a lot of things could happen. Or she really genuinely wants to give it another shot, which I don't think is really, I think that is the case, but something triggered that in her to be like, you know what, I shouldn't lose this man. It's valid that she regrets her choice, but that doesn't mean you have to accommodate her wishes. If you are truly at a happier spot in your life and you are like dreading the possibility of being with this woman again, then I wouldn't do it. But if the love for her is still there and strong and blazing, and you can see yourself wanting to give it a second shot, then I would, just because of the sake of the children, right? I get people want to do that. She has to be walking on eggshells. You do not have to put up with a lot of stuff you have to put up. And the moment you see that this is just like a charade in a sense, then you can like, oh no, call it quits. But if you don't want to put yourself through that, I understand that too. Am I the asshole for abandoning my daughter on vacation? My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation. Just the two of us, reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now, and we're excited beyond words. Enter our adult daughter, Jane. Jane and her husband got wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children, 9 female, 5 male, along. I originally put my foot down and told them this trip was just for us, which upset her some. But my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. That's stupid on both accounts, okay? As a daughter, I'd be so happy that my parents are taking a 40th anniversary trip. That would make me so happy for them that their love and romance is still alive, that they want to do things together alone. Why would the daughter try to get on that trip? That's so very awkward to me. Unless it's like, hey guys, me and your mom want to take this trip, but we want you guys to come if you can. That's like a family trip. But if they're saying, hey, we want to go for our anniversary trip, imagine if they try to jump on your anniversary trip. That's weird to me. And mom should have put her foot down too. But my mom's the same way. My mom would be like, no, if she wants to come, let her come. My mom would never say no. But I know better, and I wouldn't put her in that position to have to say no to me. You know what I mean? I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy. And I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip, even if she was heartbroken we wouldn't get our romantic trip. If she's heartbroken about it like that, then no, put your foot down. We went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive family-friendly resort. I'm selfish. I would be like, no, you cannot go. I would yell at my sister, be like, what are you doing? Leave our parents alone. You have your own husband to go with. Why are you bothering our parents? Leave them alone. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. What the? Why? Here's where things get complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. As you should, father. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something we always wanted to do. Am I backwards? Because let me get this straight. If I was intruding on my parents' 40th anniversary trip, I would be like, hey parents, because there's just two of them. I would like, as a gift for you guys, I want to pay for your trip. That's how I would do it. At that age, like maybe it's like the cultural difference and stuff, but at my grown age right now, my parents don't pay for shit for me because I'm a grown adult. Anytime we go on vacations, anything, I pay for them because they have helped me get to a point in my life where I can do that for them. This is my way of thanking them for sacrificing their young years and letting me strive now as a young adult. But that's just how I think. Would you guys let your guys' parents pay for you guys at that age? I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'd be like, no. Your money goes to like mundane stuff. I will do big purchases for you. But also my parents are not fully loaded like that. So if my parents were like millionaires, I'd be like, okay. But that doesn't seem the case here either. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something we always wanted to do. So without consulting anyone, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was the day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision, and I feel guilty about it. But I wanted our 40th anniversary to be the special, intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her, and she was extremely upset to say the least. She seemed of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have some alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting at my wife, and I enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back the same day we did, but have not answered any of our texts, and Jane seemed to be ignoring me. My wife told me that she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants to apologize. I'm not sure I want to after learning Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I feel like I should just to keep the peace. Am I the asshole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves? I think it's douchebaggery for you to change the ticket the day before and not tell anyone and change of plans, right? You made the bed, you lay in it. If you didn't want her to go, which I'm very pro of her not going, you should have stated that in the beginning and said, no, I'm not going. I could smell from a mile away that this girl wanted a free vacation with her husband so that you guys can watch the kids. I have problems with your daughter. Why would she? I just don't understand how people can like just be so entitled to like your money, your resources. Like your parents are older. Like these are your kids. You decided to have them. Why would you want to have babysitting on their anniversary trip? That's what bothers me, that she felt that she was entitled to your anniversary trip, to your time to watch her kids so she can hang out with her husband the same way that you wanted to hang out with your wife. I don't like that. Like her self-interests were at peak here, and that's not right. I'd be like, no, parents, like you guys go. I just don't know. I don't like that you changed your ticket last minute. Am I happy you did it? Yes, of course. But if this was me in that situation and I was this daughter, I would be upset too. But I also would never do a lot of the stuff your daughter did. I'm glad you did it. Ish. Not really, kind of, maybe. Am I the asshole for not having a child until my husband agrees to my fourth requirement? I want to say yes just based off the title, but I feel like your requirements are not asking for much, and they're probably just very basic standards of living. I, 28 female, and my husband, 29 male, got married 9 years ago while we were still in college. We never talked about having kids. Our relationship progressed quickly, leaving out many important topics. My husband also never expressed a strong desire to be a father, but I know he likes kids and gets along well with our niece and nephews. But since last year, he surprised me by saying he wanted to have a child with me. He felt it was time for us to start a family. I was confused because I didn't expect this change of heart from him. I said I needed time to think, and he agreed to give me space. After a lot of reflection, I realized I wasn't entirely against the idea of having a child, but I also wasn't excited about it. I knew having a child would completely change our lives, and I would have to give up many things I value. So I decided to make a list of 4 conditions that my husband would have to meet before I agreed to get pregnant. I thought it was fair since I would be taking on most of the risk and sacrifice. My conditions were: 1, he would have to undergo a fertility test to ensure he doesn't have any issues that could make conception difficult. 2, he would have to temporarily step back from his company and his brother's business, helping out for the first 2 years, similar to what his brother did when his wife had their first child, occasionally assisting at the company, committing to share the baby's care more than equally without expecting me to do more than him. I feel like moms though, like in generally speaking, do more regardless. No matter if you say that or not, like it's just mother nature. Like it's in our genes and DNA to like just do more for the child. 3, he would have to accept that I choose the birth method I feel most comfortable with, whether natural, cesarean, or induced. 4, he would have to agree to have a vasectomy after I get pregnant because I don't want more than one child and don't want to use hormonal control. Babes, no. I don't agree. Let me read it again. 4, he would have to agree to have a vasectomy after I get pregnant because I don't want more than one child and don't want to use hormonal contraceptive methods. Okay, here's the thing. You cannot tell people what to do with their body like that. You could easily get your tubes tied after the fact when you have your baby if you were very adamant on not having any more kids. But you cannot tell someone, if you want me to get pregnant, you have to have a vasectomy. I don't think that's fair. I presented my requirement to my husband and he agreed to the first 3, but he was refusing the 4th. I asked for a reason since we wouldn't have any more children after this, but his response were vague, fearing that something might go wrong. I'm still holding on to these requirements, but I'm also starting to reconsider if he doesn't agree soon. No, babes, I really think yours is kind of very, I'm going to say, like, you cannot, like, the same way, like, you don't want people telling you what to do with your body, you cannot tell him you have to have a vasectomy. I think that's just very not appropriate, out of the park. If he doesn't want to do it and you don't even sound enthusiastic about having a kid, to be honest, then you shouldn't go for it in general. And I know a vasectomy is a reversible procedure, but I don't agree with that. I would, if someone told me like, hey, Mo, if you want a baby with me, you have to promise that after you give birth, you have to get your tubes tied. Who are you talking to like that? Because I know it's not me. And the thing is, that 4th condition is very subject to change once you get pregnant and once you have a baby. So I think like that's something you should have like on the table and say, hey, can we consider this after I give birth and see where our heads are at? But for you to demand it before even trying to get pregnant, I think is asking for way too much. I would say asshole, sorry. Am I the asshole for announcing my wife's 2nd pregnancy in front of my sister who cannot have kids and ask for my money to help pay for her IVF? I don't know. This is kind of... I've been doing a lot of weird stories lately where people be asking family for money for things that I don't think they should be paying for. But my wife and I have a 3-year-old son and we're expecting our 2nd child next year. Both our children were conceived via IVF. We spent years trying for our first with no success, and it took 4 cycles of IVF to have him. It was brutal on my wife, but we both felt like trying for biological children was the way to go for us. We tried naturally for a 2nd child after our first turned 1, but had 0 luck. We were left with the money from 1 cycle of IVF, which we decided to pursue if we didn't have any luck naturally, which we didn't. Around a year ago, my wife and I were gearing up to start the ball rolling on our IVF journey when my sister came and asked if she could have the money to try IVF herself. My sister has no bio kids, but does have an 11-year-old stepson. She has endometriosis and PCOS and has never been able to have a child. Her stepson is not very close to her, and they've had problems with him since the start of their marriage. Her stepson has always brought up the fact that his dad married again too soon after his mom died and how my sister is trying to replace his mom. He ran away from home 3 times already. They also had the police and CPS on their door because he tried to get removed from their care. Our main reason for saying no is we wanted to give our son a sibling, but I can't lie and say that the dynamic in her home was on my mind too, and I wasn't sure it was a good idea to bring a new baby into their home when things are as bad as they are. She was very upset with me for turning her down. She said she has no kids and we already have 1 and we'd give her a chance if we gave her the money. I shut her down. I told her my answer was no and it was final. I'm close with my siblings. Don't get me wrong. I'm very close. But there's I just find it so weird. Like, again, and entitlement is like everywhere here. What makes you think you're entitled to your sibling's money for his family that he's trying to conceive, which you know he has fertility problems too, and for you to say, oh, but you already have one, I have none? This isn't a competition. This is my life. I don't like that. That rubs me the wrong way. like, may God forbid if I'm ever in that situation, I hope I don't ever feel the need like, oh, my siblings have so many kids. I don't have any. Like, I deserve your money for IVF. And he did 4 sessions. What if your first one doesn't work? Then his money's down the drain. And your stepson's running away from home. Why would you bring another child? That's gonna make shit worse. We waited for my wife to be far enough along before announcing our last IVF cycle worked. We did this at a family dinner. Everyone was so happy for us except for my sister and her husband. She started making snarky comments about how it was no big deal when we already had a kid. I told her given our struggles, it was a big deal. Our parents told her she should be happy for us. She then starts ranting and raving about how selfish we are to deny her motherhood and to deny her and her husband the chance of having a family together. Our other sister pointed out about her stepson. She told her she's not his mother and he hates her guts, so it's not like she'll ever get any joy out of mothering him. I told her I was sorry she could not have a kid of her own, but she didn't get to demand we sacrifice a second child for her. She told me I held her stepson against her. I told her I couldn't say that it hadn't crossed my mind that bringing a child into what is already a complicated mess would be a bad idea. But that was beside the point because we wanted another child. She told me I was an asshole for humiliating her in front of the whole family and picking a fight with her. I told her she picked the fight, not me. But I did engage, so am I the asshole? No, absolutely not. Also, here's my thing too, right? I would think that my husband would never be like, no, babe, we're not going to ask your brother for money for IVF. I'm going to get a second job and work hard for this child of ours. Am I missing something? Like, for him to be so nonchalant about asking your brother-in-law for money for them to attempt IVF rubs me the wrong way. Doesn't sit right with me. You know, if he really wanted to do this, I feel like you guys should, as a family unit, work hard to push it through. Given, I think IVF should be free. I think a lot of fertility problems occur in America and cost a lot of money, which I don't think is right. But that's the way life is. I don't think siblings should interfere in other siblings' lives in their nuclear family that they're trying to build. This is the cards you were dealt in life. This is his cards. You got to live with that. God's not always fair. Don't be mad at your brother. This is what God's doing to you. It's different if my brother offered it to me. I would never, ever, ever ask. But if he offered and says, hey sis, I know you're going through shit. I know it's hard. I'm going through it myself. I want to gift you this and give you a shot at IVF. Then that's different. But for you to feel like you are entitled to it and try to guilt him into expanding his family is shitty. Shitty behavior. Bad sibling. Am I the asshole for telling my son-in-law's wife she will never take my daughter's place? I lost my daughter Abby 7 years ago. She was married to Scott and had 3 children with him who are now 11, 12, and 14. Scott and my grandkids stayed part of the family, and last year Scott remarried. His current wife is Beth. We all knew Beth for a few years prior to the wedding, and she was always very friendly. Though at times she could be a little pushy. Scott would always handle that though. After they got married, Beth's pushiness got worse and Scott appears to have lost control. Beth was upset when she dropped my grandkids off one day that we had not added photos of her to our house and commented as such. In our living room, we have a display with photos of our kids and their weddings. She felt her and Scott's wedding should be there. Every story I'm reading today, the entitlement is like, boo! Astonishing. Crazy. Where do people learn this behavior? She was upset when my grandkids spent Mother's Day with us and our extended family, and we did not include her. Scott wasn't invited either. Mother's Day is a difficult day for him due to a bad relationship with his own mother. But Beth said we should invite her too because she's part of the family, and then she said she's one of our kids too. I asked her what she meant, and she told me she is obviously going to be one of our kids now that she's a mother figure to our grandkids. I told Scott what she said, and he was embarrassed and told me he would speak to her. Beth was also upset when my husband posted on Facebook to say something about our kids, and she didn't get mentioned as one of our kids, but as Scott's wife. We mentioned Scott and how wonderful he was to Abby and how wonderful he is as a father. For my grandson's 14th birthday, we were all together and he wanted a mom's side photo. Beth attempted to get into the photo, and when Scott tried to remind her, she said she's part of the family now. He pulled her aside and the photo was taken without her. But she told one of my sons after that she felt like we weren't treating her as a daughter, and then said Scott never treated her as a lesser wife. Well, who do you think you are? This is your husband's ex-wife by death family. Who? No, absolutely not. Read the room. We saw them a little over Christmas, and Beth was upset that we also got them a joint gift for her and Scott, instead of getting her one alone. She told me she's tired of feeling like she's not really family, and she says she feels like we always put Abby first when she's here now. Oh, Abby's their daughter. Who are you? No one. Absolutely no one. Scott is the father of their grandkids. You're nobody. I saw red after this, and I told her she can never take my daughter's place, and the fact she ever thought she could is outrageous. She told me the kids call her mom and they think the world of her, so why wouldn't we? I told her the kids have always called her Beth when I hear them, and she turned around and said that's our fault because the kids should be calling her mom and they don't. She lost it from there. Beth stormed out and I explained what happened to Scott. He apologized and left the kids with us so he could speak to her. I think they worked it out, but Beth said I was needlessly cruel to imply she's not as good as Abby and doesn't deserve to be our daughter. Am I the asshole? No, absolutely not. Don't like you, Beth. Beth is insane. Why does she expect to be her ex-husband's ex-in-law's daughter? Why can't she be the daughter of her husband's family? There's a certain level of respect you maintain with your stepkids side of the family that you are not related to. I don't understand where this like entitlement that you're their new daughter is very weird to me. Extremely very weird to me. They lost their daughter and some random from nowhere wants to replace her. Like imagine how I would. Why? My question is like, does Beth have a relationship with her own family? Is that something that like she had in her life? Is it missing? Is that a gap that she's trying to get filled from them? Is it something she needs? She can't replace their daughter. The fact that she tried to jump in the mom's side of the photo, no, absolutely not. Hey guys, it's time for my favorite part of the episode. The last story is going to be a viewer submission, Viewer's Corner, where you guys send me your stories and I give my advice and judgment, guidance, opinion, all of it. She doesn't have a title, but she says, I, a 34 female, have been with my boyfriend, 36 male, for 6 years. We started out with long distance relation for the first 4 years. In the middle of our 3rd year, my boyfriend and I started having troubles and he cheated on me with someone who was more local. I thought about giving up back then. When I pictured my life without him, I knew deep down I truly loved him and still do. After he realized who the other girl really was, he broke things off with her and we got back together. Babes, not making a good case for yourself. When he realized he didn't want her, he came back to you. You are no one's second choice. No one's second thought, no one's second opinion. Of course, you realize you love them. That's why breaking up is hard. But you gotta put yourself first because this man did not put you first. Anyways, I know, easier said than done, guys. I know, I'm not trying to judge, but it's like, we gotta shake him a little bit. With us getting back together, I made a decision to finally move from New Mexico to Boston. Once we started living together, there were sides of him I've never seen before. Some good and some bad. When we moved in together, it was the start of the pandemic. He lost his job and became depressed. Fast forward, 2 years have passed and he still has no job. We are currently staying with his parents and I recently found out that he's been talking to other girls. I have confronted him about them and asked if there's any romantic conversations. He says no, but I know when he lies and I did a horrible thing and looked at his phone. Baby girl. It is not, look at you. You did not do a horrible thing. He's doing the horrible thing by cheating on you and lying to your face and not having a job in 2 years and living with your parents and not providing for you the life that you deserve. Don't feel guilty. If he didn't make you feel this type of way, you wouldn't feel the need to go through his phone. I saw where he has been messaging 2 girls and where he told one he loves her. My boyfriend is the kind of person who does not like to be challenged. Okay, very fragile masculinity energy right there. And he loses his temper quicker than a hiccup. Girl, what do you like about this man at this point? I have chosen to stay quiet and pray that once he gets a job and we have space, things will get better. The reason I don't leave is that I love him so much because he knows and understands me better than anyone, and I don't want to return to New Mexico because I never felt at home there, even though my family is there. What should I do? I need someone's opinion. Listen, babes, you gotta leave. I know it sounds easy coming from my mouth because I'm not in the situation, I'm not in love, but you have to leave. And I would just, honest to God, the best way to leave, you just pack your shit, you don't speak to this man and you leave. You are not attached to him, you're attached to the idea of him, of having someone. People don't like to be alone. Humans don't like that. We need that interaction. Once you have someone you've built that connection with, to break it willingly, it's like really difficult. You don't deserve any of the stuff that you're going through. And you will find someone one day who will treat you how you should be treated. And then you're gonna be like, wow. You're gonna step back once you're out of the fog and the like mist. You're like, I cannot believe I let a man treat me this way. Once you find the right person. Go back to your family. You'll find someone more worth your while. You seem way too good for him. You do not deserve to go through any of this. Loses his anger quicker than a hiccup. Why would you be okay with that? Absolutely not. Not in this day and age. There is no excuse for that type of behavior. And you're promoting it by staying with him and letting him text 2 girls on the side and saying, I love you. Is that not enough to prove that he doesn't care about you? Tough love right here. What else do you need for him to show you? He cheated on you once and he's texting more girls now. What else do you need from him? Oh my God, has my earring been out this whole time? Oh my God, it wasn't even clipped. What else do you need from this man for him to tell you that he doesn't care? This is what happens. These guys show you all these signs and girls just become oblivious to it and aloof and they're like, oh no, but he loves me. He doesn't, babe. You gotta go. Get out of there. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Gray in Between. It really does mean a lot. If you've made it to this point in the video, I really do appreciate you and the people who watch it and tune in every Tuesday from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys so much. I love and appreciate my community more than you guys will ever know. Thank you for joining me on this journey on The Gray in Between. If you have a story to share or a dilemma you'd like me to weigh in on, don't hesitate to reach out. Remember, life isn't always black and white. There's beauty in the gray. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep exploring the in between. Bye, guys.